If you do enough work in CDK, you might get to a point where you want to do a bit of debugging and find out what happened when it threw an error. And that can be quite challenging. So let's go and have a look at the CDK package itself in our known modules. There are several packages that form CDK, but the one we're interested in as the CLI, if you like, is AWS CDK. So let's go and find that one. Here we go. And if I look in the bin folder for CDK, we require CDK.js. And if I look at CDK.js, it's another tiny little file and it imports lib. So what is in lib in the index file? And it is a whopper, 27 and a bit megabytes of text, all minified. And this is really, really challenging to get to work with a debugger. If you've managed to get a debugger to parse this file and not crash, then please tell me how. I've tried and I couldn't get it to work. So if you've not needed to do any debugging in CDK yet, you can probably skip this lesson for now. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can compile CDK from source and then use the compiled version rather than the installed version. So let's pop over to the CDK repo and I'm going to check it out into a folder. Okay, with that checked out, let's pop to the CDK documentation and we'll scroll down to contributing. We'll go to contributing.md. We'll have a look at the steps in getting started. So we've checked it out. I've got these dependencies installed already. So we can move into the folder and then do a yarn install. Okay, with that done, let's see what next. So we have a bit of an introduction into the structure of the package and how it's used. And then we have the bit that is going to take some time where we're building everything. You can try and build just AWS CDK if you like. I'm just going to build the whole lot here. And a considerable amount of time later, we are done. So let's do a which CDK, and you can see that it's still not installed globally, even though we've done all this building and setup. Let's go and have a look at our packages folder. In here we have AWS CDK, which is what we're interested in. And then let's have a look in bin. And in bin we have a CDK file. And if I do an ls/lah, so you can see the permissions, this CDK file here is executable. So if I take this full path and I pop CDK in there, we can do -- version, and there we go. We see we've got an unreleased version because we built it manually from Git here. So let's take this path to the CDK, it's not binary I guess, but executable, and let's pop over to another project we have, and let's do, I don't know, let's go for a synth, and we can put it into template.yaml. I think actually we are using a multi-stack project here, so we'll go with lambda stack. And it works just like we would expect. It runs a synth and it puts stuff into a file. The win here really is that it's much easier for us to do debugging. So let's look at how we would debug the diff operation in CDK. So I'm going to open up my terminal here and I'm going to pop up to the command we had for running CDK with the version that we have built manually. And I can run a diff like normal, just with the command being diff. And there we go, there are no differences in my stacks. So how would we get a debugger going in here? So there's two sort of levels of debugging in CDK. There's debugging the CDK CLI itself, and then there's debugging some of the packages that get called by the CDK process. If we look in the CDK.json, you probably remember that it launches a separate process that actually is running our application, actually running our TypeScript code. And I've got a little app debug key in here, which is not a standard key, it doesn't do anything, it's just here for my own reference, where we were setting up debugging for that inner level, if we wanted to say stick some breakpoints in our own code. But what if we want a breakpoint in the CDK CLI itself? So we can launch Node with inspect break to allow us to connect to debugger. Then we can do the path to the CDK file just like we had before, and then we can run diff again. And this is now waiting on us running the debugger or starting the debugger. So I'm going to go into our built version of the CDK, and we can have a look in the lib folder, and there's a diff.js. So let's open diff.js. So actually, let's just open this folder, and we can drag diff.js into our editor, and let's just stick a breakpoint in up here in this first function. Then we can run the debugger. And there we go. We've hit a breakpoint in CDK, and we have the kind of expanded version of this. There's no bundling involved. So that makes it much easier to debug what's going wrong in a CDK application if you're dealing with the CLI itself. The other debugging we might want to do is for the inbuilt constructs, or otherwise anything else in the AWS CDK lib dependency. So what we can do is we can swap ourselves over to AWS CDK lib in the built packages here. So let's pop down to AWS CDK lib. I'm going to get the full path to this folder. We're going to change this version number here for a file reference like so. Whoops, didn't mean to click on that link. We will do an npm install. Lovely, and let's just double check in the package lot that we have got that version. Yes, we do. Great. And let's go and find something for us to do some debugging in. So I pop to my terminal, and we've got tons of packages here. We're definitely using Lambda as part of this project. So let's go and look for Lambda and have a look in lib, and then we've got function.js. So I'll see if I can open function.js in WebStorm. I think that should work. There we go, lovely. So we can find the constructor here of the main function class, which I think is this one. Yes, it is, great. And so let's just, whoops, there's one from my testing. Let's just let's stick a breakpoint in here. Okay, so we've got the construct going. How do we then make sure that we get debugging at this level and not the top level? In the cdk.json, I have an app debug command, which isn't actually used. It's not read by CDK, but I just have it here for my reference, as it were. So I'm going to swap these round. So we're going to have app be node with inspect break. Then we're going to call TS node with the path in our local TS modules, the usual arguments we give to TS node, and then our project. So let's run that, and we're going to run CDK without the debugging at this top level. So we're not going to use this one. We're going to use this one. And I'll tell you what, let's do a synth. And we'll synth our Lambda stack into a file. Okay, so we've been asked to start a debugger, so let's do that. And I think we're getting a bit of an error here because of the prefer TS extensions option. So let's just let's take that off and try again. And there we go. We are now in a nice version of the construct. And yes, it's been transpiled, but we've not got the minified version where it's in one huge 27 megabyte file. So to recap, we cloned CDK, we installed or built it all, which took a very long time. And then we used that with two levels of debugging, one for the CLI utility itself and one for the AWS CDK lib package, including all of the built-in constructs.